with a listener, Drury Nadev. Nadev? Is that right? Is that it?
That's it, Tom.
That's it.
That's it.
Well, it's, I was really shocked yesterday whenever I found that I was going to go to Brooklyn, and so I emailed you last night. You sent me an email, and so I fired off an email right away. I figured you'd still be on your computer, and we were able to hook up, and so...
Glad I was.
And I was dreading, I looked up on Google Maps where the place was, and I was just really, because this place, there's this railroad bridge that's, it's like the subway or the, some kind of L or something that goes right down the street. The place where I'm unloading at, it's McDonald Avenue. It's I guess it's sort of a warehouse type district. And so there's this really old elevated bridge that the subway runs on, and then so it's really kind of unique probably to New York City. You might see it in Chicago or something, but when I saw that on Google Maps, I thought, oh my God. And then the directions that I had were really convoluted. Turn here, turn there, do this, do that. And I thought, how am I ever... And of course the GPS had its idea of what it was going to be. So, now you're originally from New York City?
New York City. Originally from New York City, yep.
Yeah. And so you've...
Big Apple.
When did you move away?
I moved away in 2004 and went down to Florida, Spring Hill, and didn't work out with the old lady, and I moved back over here. Had a bad accident, and I kind of retired from trucking according to the law, and or else I would still be trucking today. And I'm glad and honored to run into you, Tom, and all the fellow other truck drivers that are doing podcasting and bridging the gap together between drivers, so we can easily communicate to one another, listen to what you got to say, be out there if you need any help. If you're in the neighborhood, we're always glad to go out and give a hand, make time for it. And I'm just honored that I had the time to come out here and meet you, and I listen to your podcast, and you're doing a great job, and words are not enough to express the new wave of technology that's taking place and how we can be in contact with you. And
the thing that's and we were talking about it before,
right? The
thing that's always, when I started podcasting, it was kind of funny, because I found out, maybe I heard the word first in October 2004, as I heard that word podcast.
Right. And
I thought, gosh, I even wrote it, I write everything on my logbook, I wrote it down, and I wrote down podcast, and I was going to look it up, and then some time passed, and I heard the word again, and I thought, gosh, I need to, I wrote that down, I need to look that up. And so I finally, one day I was sitting there, and I looked it up, and then I realized what it was, and two things happened. Immediately I knew that I was going to do a podcast. I felt compelled to do a podcast. I didn't have any idea what it was going to be about, but I just it's just one of those things. I felt compelled to do it. And then the other thing I bought, at the same time, I bought a little MP3 player, and I started listening, because there was already quite a few podcasts that were available, and more than I could listen to, more material than I could possibly listen to, right. And good stuff. And so at that point, I just pretty much quit listening to the radio, because the radio, you're driving around, and every 30 minutes you're switching channels, and
exactly.
With the podcast, you've got total control over the playback. If you need to stop and you're interrupted, you just pause it, and then you can really pay attention to it. So it's, and then you get to choose the content as opposed to trying to find what's the least boring that's on the radio,
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, you get out in someplace like Wyoming or something, and all you hear is maybe you're lucky if you hear some farm reports or something.
Yeah. I'll tell you, years ago, we'd have the CB, and if you strike a good conversation with a fellow trucker, head, to the same destination, be it Chicago, California.
That happened a few times with me.
Sometimes other drivers get antsy. They say, hey, go to another channel, or you know, today the quality of the CB, you know, out in the east, I mean, everybody's cursing, all that, but I find it a very relaxing way that if today I was trucking, whether I truck or not truck, I'm home and I'm listening to the podcast. It gives me something to see what my fellow brothers and sisters are doing out there, what it's like on the road, economy-wise, through these days, and you know, and to see, you know, what problems are out there. And I find it very nurturing to kill time. It's very tranquil, whether you don't like the station or you can't get a reception to listen to a certain radio station. This is the best way to go, I tell you. It just passes up time like you wouldn't believe, and it's very soothing. It's an educational experience to listen to certain things. I've listened to your podcast. I've learned a lot from you, and I'm totally honored that I was able to hook up with you today. And
well, that's been one of the things I've made more since I started podcasting. I've made more really good friends than I had, the 50 years that I lived before that. I made more friends since I started podcasting for about 4.5 years ago than I'd ever made before. Yeah. And it's really an amazing thing. You're able to make friends with people all over the country and even all over the world.
Yeah.
And so it's really the internet. I think the reason podcasting came about, because we've had MP3 files for a long time, we've had digital recording for a long time, but it got to what really made it happen was the broadband internet got to a certain point, critical mass, and then it became possible.
It's an awesome tool.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
You can talk about anything, what's on your mind, and we can learn from one another. It's like they said, a child today that's going 8 hours in school, he can learn more 8 hours on a computer, to a specific subject that interests him, rather than doing something that doesn't interest him and getting a bad grade at.
Well, see, that's the whole point. The school, children, I believe children are naturally curious. How do kids learn how to talk? You don't have to go to school to learn how to talk. We learn how they're able to put it all together and make sense out of it. Yep. Children are naturally curious, so if school, the problem with a lot of schools, and certainly it was a problem when I was a kid in school, and I can only imagine what it's like today, it's like they're trying to tell you, you're going to learn this, and you got to, it's like being on a production line, and they're,
exactly.
And if you imagine a production line and they've got a funnel stuck in the top of their heads, and they're filling it up to a certain level with each grade, and that you learn that way, and you can end up becoming brainwashed. It's a bad way of learning, and the people that can learn that way end up becoming the next generation of school teachers. My phone's ringing. I bet you that's that woman. Better answer it. So that's it for now.